Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Nelson, here on this wonderful Monday afternoon. And this segment, this podcast, and all the segments, they're going to be all about the playoffs. So that's basically what all of the 4 segments are going to be. I'm going to talk about 2 playoff games in every single segment. So the first segment, we're going to talk about the Knicks and the Lakers playoff game. Then in the second segment, we are going to talk about the Clippers and the Wolves playoff game. And the third segment, we're going to talk about the Bucks and the Celtics playoff game. And then in the fourth segment, we're going to talk about the Thunder and the Cavs game. So that's basically going to be the rundown of all the segments for today. And before I begin, I'd like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment to get your comments recognized. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and talk about all these playoff games. So every single home team in the first game of the playoffs, they were able to take game 1 and successfully defend home court. We'll still have to see how well they defend home court in the next games that come up. The next games are scheduled to happen tonight, and they start at 7 with the Magic going up against the Cavs. At 7:30 with the Knicks taking on the Sixers again, and then at 10 o'clock with the Lakers going up against the Nuggets. So let's go ahead and start with Game 1 of the Knicks going up against the Sixers. They played Game 1 at home in Madison Square Garden, so keeping in mind where the playoff games are going to be are rather important, because that way it determines which team, because home field advantage, it really makes a difference in the postseason, because it's much easier to play in front of your home crowd than it is to play in front of the other team, in front of an opposing home crowd in the postseason, where the environment is much more hostile and there's a lot more tension in the air. The Knicks, they were able to, of all the teams in the postseason, the Knicks are by far the ones with the most pressure. Being a New York Knick is literally just half the battle of the playoff pressure that these Knicks have to face. It's like every single year they are faced with the scrutiny of the fact that they're the Knicks and they're already like a bad team, not to mention the fact that the Knicks tend to struggle in the postseason. So with that in mind, a lot of people usually write them off and don't really expect much of them. So being a Knick, it's really important to handle that pressure, not to mention every single team always tries their best when going against the Knicks in the Garden. And they have to worry about that every single season, every single game. And being the best player on the Knicks comes with a lot of pressure that not many people would even want to handle. So this pressure, it hasn't really affected Brunson yet throughout the season, but this is the first time in the playoffs where it may have affected him, because he shot 8 of 26 from the field and had 22 points. So obviously with the fact that he took way more shots than he ended with points, that's really not good. But on the bright side, the Knicks were able to win 111 to 104. So even with this really bad performance coming in from Brunson, they were still able to win. Josh Hart ended the game with 22 points and 13 rebounds as well. He is arguably one of the best rebounding guards in the NBA right now. And let's see, Miles McBride ended the game with 21 points, 7 of 12 from the field. Bojan Bogdanovic ended the game 4 of 12 from the field for 13 points. And OG Anunoby ended the game with 11 points, 5 of 10 from the field. And DiVincenzo ended the game with 8 points, 3 of 10 from the field. So two of the team's important players did not really play that well, and regardless, they were still able to come out with the win. So this not only speaks on how good the Knicks roster is, but really just how lackluster the Sixers offense is, because Tyrese Maxey, he ended the game with 33 points, but they still were able to lose. Joel Embiid ended with 29 points, and they still were able to lose. One thing that should be worth mentioning about Joel Embiid is that in this playoff game, he suffered a little bit of an injury. He re-aggravated his knee injury, like where he tore his meniscus, and it caused him to sit out a little bit of the game, but he was back and playing in the game. But it just goes back to what I was saying about Joel Embiid and being healthy in the postseason. He always, I don't know what it is, he almost always gets injured in the postseason, and this could hurt his team. Kyle Lowry ended the game with 18 points. Tobias Harris ended the game with just 7 points, so again, he did not play rather well in this game. Took 7 shots, 3 of 7 from the field. Joel Embiid shot 8 for 22 from the field, but only took 12 free throws. So he made up a lot of his points at the line, and obviously, like, if you take away the free throws that he took, he would only amount to 18 points. So they also got lucky with the amount of free throws that they gave Joel Embiid. Maybe if the Sixers play at home, they'll have much more of an advantage with the referees potentially being on their side a little bit more. I'm not hinting at anything, but it's just most of the time the refs are much more lenient to calling something on one of their own players as opposed to the other team's players. At least that's my perspective when looking at some of these games. So maybe he'll have much more advantage getting the calls that he wants over there. But regardless, they take game 1. This was a very crucial game 1 that they really needed. And it usually, most of the time with these playoffs, it comes down with the team that's able to defend home court. And regardless of whether or not you have home court advantage or whether you don't, you always try to steal a game. So you have to defend home court and steal a game in order to win the playoffs. Now, if you're the home court, then chances are you don't have to steal a game because 4 of the 7 games are going to be played in your home court, thus giving you the advantage. But regardless, you still want to try and steal that game so that way you don't have to play a game 7. Now, on to the next team that I said I was going to look over, and that was the Lakers going up against the Denver Nuggets. Now, before I did not think that the Lakers would really have a chance, but towards the half, they were up by 3, and they were able to make this game a lot closer than what I thought the game was going to be. Even though the final score was 114 to 103, the game was a lot closer than it would have you guys think. So, on the Lakers side, Anthony Davis ended the game with 32 points and 14 rebounds. LeBron James ended with 27 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds. And that was basically it for the scoring for the Lakers. Now, they're regressing to the same problem that I had with them in the beginning of the year, where the rest of the starters and the rest of the players in the rotation wouldn't do LeBron and Anthony Davis enough justice. So D'Angelo Russell, he played 41 minutes and ended with 13 points. He shot 6 for 20 from the field and 1 of 9 from 3. Austin Reeves also had 13 points, shot 5 of 9 from the field and 2 of 6 from 3. So that production is not ideal for either of those players, especially D'Angelo Russell, who ended up taking 20 shots. So it's like this same problem happens every single year for LeBron James in the postseason. It's every single time his teammates just don't play well when the lights shine brightest. Taurean Prince, he ended the game with 11 points, so that's very, very good. But Roy Hachimura, he only ended the game with 7 points and took 4 shots. What happened here? Why on earth were they just deciding to not allow him to take enough shots? Now, obviously, LeBron and Anthony Davis, they were phenomenal, but without the scoring production coming in from D'Angelo Russell, they weren't able to really do much. But with that in mind, all it took was D'Angelo Russell needing to hit a couple more shots. If that's what it comes down to, then there's a chance that they could win this series. Because obviously, like, LeBron and AD, they played very, very well, especially for it being the first game. And now they just need D'Angelo Russell to follow suit. Now, on the Nuggets side, Nikola Jokic, he ended the game with 32 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. Jamal Murray, he ended the game with 22 points and 10 assists. And Aaron Gordon ended with 12 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. And Michael Porter Jr. ended the game with 19 points and 0 assists. So, obviously, like, this team, they were playing very well. They were much better, like, in terms of the starting lineup. They played much better as a team. They had a lot more players score a lot more points as opposed to the Lakers. And not to mention the rest of the box scores for this team. Compared to the Lakers, they only had 6 players show up on the box score for the Lakers compared to the Nuggets, who had several other players score a point or more, which in turn obviously helps the team. And it's really bad if you're the Lakers with this kind of problem, because they're only relying on like 6 players for their scoring. And that's not really enough and another thing that should be taken note is the Nuggets and their offensive rebounding. They ended the game with 15 offensive rebounds compared to the Lakers, who ended with 6. And obviously, like, it was a combination of a failure to grab these kind of rebounds that killed the Lakers. Like, they weren't able to get these extra possessions on offense, and that's what really ended up costing them this game. So both of the stars in this game, they shined despite the rough shooting night from Jamal Murray. And a win in this series will require either D'Lo or Austin Reeves to step up, and neither of them did tonight. So there were 4 total turnovers for Denver, and it's hard to lose when you take care of the ball as good as they do. So on top of the fact that they weren't getting enough possessions with the rebounds, they also weren't getting a lot of stops defensively, and they also weren't forcing Denver to lose the ball in any kind of situation, thus allowing them to score. And when you have all of this happening against you, it becomes very difficult to win the game. And now for the Knicks side, and like for that Knicks game that I was previously talking about, it was just like in the regular season, but the difference between Embiid on versus Embiid off couldn't be more than a night and day scenario for this team. So Miles McBride and Josh Hart, they were New York saviors offensively for this game. And I really think that the Knicks could definitely win this game. And the team stat that, again, with the rebounds for the Sixers, they only had 9, but the Knicks ended with 23. So when you have a team that's able to get as many rebounds as they do, it becomes very difficult to win because they're getting a lot more possessions than you, which in turn results in them getting a lot more points. So that's basically like all the takeaways I have from this game. So we're going to go into the second segment where I look at 2 more playoff games, particularly the Mavericks going up against the Clippers in Game 1, as well as, let me just go ahead and look at what's next on the list, as well as the Timberwolves playing against the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant going up against Anthony Edwards. So I will be right back after this short break.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
There we go. And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Sorry for that longer than usual delay. There was a little bit of problems with my audio, but they seem to be working just fine right now. So before I begin with this playoff breakdown, and this playoff recap, I like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. And with that out of the way, we can go right ahead and continue with this playoff recap with the rest of the games that happen in the playoffs. So keeping with the trend that I said in the previous segment, every single home team in this game was able to take away game one. So the Clippers, they ended up doing the exact same with the Dallas Mavericks. Despite Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving playing to their absolute best, and despite Kawhi Leonard not being available for game one for the Clippers were able to win this game in a blowout, 109-97. There were a lot of blowouts in the first game of the playoffs, a lot more than I expected for a lot of these teams. So the Clippers, they desperately needed Harden and Russell Westbrook in order to survive without Kawhi Leonard, and those those two players provided in a very big way. Russell Westbrook, he ended the game with 13 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds. But the real star was obviously James Harden. He ended the game with 28 points and 8 assists, along with Paul George, who also ended the game with 22 points and 6 rebounds. And Ivica Zubac ended the game with 20 points and 15 rebounds. So overall, very good performance coming in from the Clippers, and it was really good coming in from the starting lineup. They desperately needed this performance from Harden, and he's obviously nowhere near the same player that he was on Houston. He's far from his prime, And he also has his struggles in the postseason. However, this game, it was a very good statement game for the Clippers that shows that even without Kawhi Leonard, they're still a rather dangerous team. And on the Dallas Mavericks side, again, I said Luka Doncic, he played very well. So 33 points and 13 rebounds along with 6 assists. I consider that playing really well. Kyrie, he also played well, 31 points and 7 rebounds. But similar story with Luka Doncic going up against the Clippers every single time. The team fails to shine when the lights shine the brightest. And PJ Washington ended the game with 11 points. And Derrick Jones Jr. ended the game with 0 points, which was definitely not helping. Daniel Gafford ended the game with 3 points. Again, definitely not helping this team. And in terms of scorers, those were the only 3 players that ended the game in double figures. Now, this game, like I said, was a blowout. So at the start of the start of the game, the Clippers already had this ridiculous lead. They outscored the Dallas Mavericks 22-8 in the second quarter. And obviously that lead is it's way too much for any team to come back. And the Clippers, they ended up winning 109-97. So obviously this game, it was decided from the start. And there was really nothing to it. So once the Clippers got it rolling, there was really the lead was just too much. And it did seem like the Clippers were going to blow it yet again, but there was just not enough time left for the Mavericks to really do anything. So there was really nothing that the Mavs could do in this game. And the Clippers, they showed, they reminded everyone just how good of a team they really are, having as many phenomenal players as they do. James Harden, he won the MVP, and he was runner-up several years behind Westbrook and behind players that were also really, really good. And he's been really good for the longest time on Houston. He's been one of the league's best scorers of recent memory. And so the fact that he's not the same player that he once was, this sort of shows that he's not yet done playing as well as he normally can play. So I don't know if he's going to score 30 again. I don't know if he's going to score 40 again, but he definitely shows that he's definitely showing why the Clippers decided to pick him up after the Sixers decided to stop using him as a piece to their offense. And again, with Westbrook, he was also a league MVP, and he was also a player that would average really good numbers in the regular season. But since Kevin Durant left him, he hasn't really had good enough numbers in the postseason, and that's sort of been the big problem with Russ. So if he can win this championship ring, a lot of people will be happy, and he would also finally be cemented in history as one of the best point guards because he'll have that championship ring. So if you're the Mavericks, I mean, obviously, the idea is to try and steal the next game going into the series so that way you don't have to worry about being down 2-0 and worry about Kawhi getting healthy as you get more games deeper and deeper into the playoffs. So the idea is to sort of try and stay healthy and try and finish the playoffs as quickly as possible so that way you don't have to worry about playing Kawhi. Now, next game on this list is the Timberwolves going up against the Phoenix Suns. Keeping with the tradition that I've said previously, the home team was able to win, and the game was a blowout. So the final score was 120-95. Anthony Edwards ended the game scoring 33 points, along with 9 rebounds and 6 assists. Karl Anthony Towns was also in this game with 19 points. And Rudy Gobert ended the game with 14 points and 16 rebounds. Now, Kevin Durant, he ended the game with 31 points. However, Devin Booker ended the game with 18 points, 5 for 16 from the field, and Bradley Beal ended 6 for 10 from the field with 15 points. So obviously this was not a very good performance coming in from the two guards. Kevin Durant did about all he could in this game, but it wasn't enough for the Timberwolves, who were able to answer back, especially when you have Anthony Edwards scoring more than Kevin Durant. And the team, like the Timberwolves as a team, were just better overall than the Phoenix Suns, which, again, it's like a double-edged sword with Phoenix. You have this really good offensive talent. However, what if they don't show up when you really need them? Where are the next pieces to your team? Where's the next set of offense? Now, Grayson Allen in this game, he ended with only 3 points, so obviously that wasn't really good coming in from him. Jusuf Nurkic ended 4 of 6 from the field with only 9 points, and there was not really a lot of scoring. Eric Gordon ended the game 0 for 5 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3, and this game was sort of like a statement game for Anthony Edwards, and a lot of people were sort of seeing this as like a passing of the torch moment, I guess you could say. Anthony Edwards, he said it numerous times that he considers Kevin Durant as the greatest player of all time because he simply cannot be guarded since he is so tall and he is so good off the dribble, he cannot be guarded. But after this game, he's sort of shown that he can outduel even his best player, which in turn should only give him a little bit, not only give him more respect, but also like set the tone going in for the playoffs, that like even though like I might have idolized you growing up, that is not going to stop me from playing well in this playoff series. And obviously like Anthony Edwards is one of the most competitive guards in the NBA, and the fact that he was able to compete against his own idol is obviously like something that's very, very impressive to me. And I really like the way that the series is looking to turn out. And so obviously Kevin Durant was unguardable in this game since he did get 31. But outside of that, there was really nobody that could really like show up, especially like with considering how they had Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. They did not show up in this game whatsoever, and they could not contain the bigs either. That's another thing because, like, again, like I mentioned previously, their defense is a little bit lacking, and considering how much length the Timberwolves have over the Phoenix Suns, it's really difficult to contain them. So Minnesota created plenty of extra looks off of offensive rebounds, and it really made a difference for them tonight. So Minnesota was able to get 20 second chance points compared to Phoenix's 6. And Anthony Edwards was able to drop dagger after dagger in the third quarter, and it gave Minnesota a huge lead heading into the fourth. So the impact off the bench, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a plus 28 on the box plus minus tonight, and he made big impact on both ends of the court, which is obviously like very good coming in from the Wolves. And for the previous game that I was talking about, which was the Clippers, Dallas had nothing to stop Ivica Zubac because of how dominant he was in the paint and how many rebounds he was getting. James Harden, he all of a sudden he decided to play like the Houston James Harden that we're used to, and along with the foul calls that he got in this game, I did not mention it previously, but I'll look at the free throw difference in this game. So James Harden ended up shooting 6 free throws, 6 for 6 from the field. And in terms of like the free throws, the Mavericks ended up getting the advantage. But despite this, the Clippers, they were able to come out on top. Every time Gafford helps to contest a shot, the rebound goes to Zubac. And the first half could not have gone worse for the Dallas Mavericks. As I mentioned previously, in the second quarter, they only scored 8 points. And it was an off night for Luka, despite him getting all those points and rebounds. And everyone but the third quarter Kyrie, especially Maxi Kleber, who just couldn't do anything right. That's basically like the notes that I had for this previous game. And that's basically it for the recap of those two games. So now I will be going into the third segment where I will give a quick recap of the rest of the playoff games. The next two that I will be talking about are the Bucks going up against the Pacers and the Celtics going up against the Miami Heat. So I will be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we're going to be talking about the Bucks going up against the Pacers in Game 1, as well as the Celtics going up against the Miami Heat. So we'll start with the Bucks and the Pacers, and keeping with the trend that I said before, the home team was able to prevail in Game 1, and the Bucks were no different. And along with another trend, the games were also blowouts, and the Bucks ended up winning 109-94. This was without Giannis playing in the game, and the Bucks were able to win at home and defend home court. I'm very surprised by this, and I'm very surprised how well the Bucks were able to play despite not having Giannis. Now, Damian Lillard, he was ridiculous in the first half. He ended the game with 35 points and 6 rebounds, and also ended with 35 points at the half. So there's some good and bad to take away from that. Now, he was almost able to outscore the entire Pacers in the first half, which they got most of their production from Pascal Siakam, who ended the game with 36 points and 13 rebounds. Tyrese Halliburton, he ended the game with only 9 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds on 38 minutes. So that's not really good for the Pacers. Miles Turner ended the game with 17 points, and TJ McConnell ended the game with 10 points, and that was basically it for the scoring coming in from the Pacers. Halliburton shooting only 7 shots is not ideal for this team whatsoever. He definitely needs to take a lot more shots than he is used to, and I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know why he hasn't really taken as many shots as he's used to in these games, and it really costed them because, again, as I said previously, Damian Lillard, he scored 35 points at the half, but that means he did not do anything in the second half. And if Tyrese Halliburton would have ended up scoring a few more than he did, in the second half of this game, the story might have been different, and they might have been able to win game 1, but instead he only took 7 shots. And Chris Middleton, he ended up playing really well in this game, 9 of 14 from the field, getting 23 points. Bobby Portis ended the game with 15 points, 7 of 15 from the field. Brook Lopez ended the game 5 for 10 from the field with 11 points. And Malik Beasley ended the game 3 for 7 with 9 points. And again, there was a lot more scoring coming in from the rest of the Bucks, especially coming in from Damian Lillard, than there was from the rest of the Pacers. But keep in mind how Pascal Siakam was able to outscore Damian Lillard as a whole in this game. So if Halliburton only showed up in this game and would have shot the ball a bit more times and maybe play like how everyone usually saw him play in the in-season tournament, then this could be a different story. But obviously, I'm really surprised with Doc Rivers in this game, how, they ended up winning the first game, but they have to defend this home court advantage, and they have to do that in the next game, which is set to happen tomorrow at 8:30, and they're still expected to play in Milwaukee. Obviously, like the first 2 games, they're in the higher seeds home court advantage, and so I still think that the Pacers have a chance in this series, and they do still have a chance to win in game 2. It was a relatively bad shooting night for them. They shot 8 for 38 from the 3-point line. If they would have hit a few more threes, then they would have been all right. And the Bucks, they shot 14 of 37 from 3. And obviously, they shot with a team that shoots much better than you from 3. It's really difficult to beat that. So if they're able to match that shooting in the next game, then they should have no problem in winning. And that should be the biggest problem for the Milwaukee Bucks, establishing a defense on the perimeter, because again, allowing 38 3-pointers to be attempted, a lot of them were really good looks, and it really just came down to them missing. So if the players don't miss, that's going to be a really big problem for the Bucks, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to prove that they can defend. Now, a lot of these games, you might notice, again, with these blowouts, they're rather boring. So, and this is no different for this game, which is the Miami Heat going up against the Boston Celtics in the Garden. So the Celtics ended up winning 114-94, again, another blowout, and again, the home team taking home court advantage in this postseason. So Jason Tatum, this was his first ever triple-double in the postseason, ended the game with 23 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. Jaylen Brown, he ended the game with 17 points and 8 rebounds. And Derek White ended the game with 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists. Porzingis, he ended the game with 18 points and 4 rebounds. And Drew Holiday ended the game with only 6 points. So obviously, a lot of good scoring and a lot of mediocre scoring coming in from the team. Drew Holiday shot the worst on the team. He was 2 for 8 from the field for 6 points. He's always been really bad in the postseason, and I feel really bad for him, because it's he was inconsistent on Milwaukee, and now he's not really doing his best on the Celtics. However, he does have a really good team to play behind, so it's not like his performance really affects him and his team like how it did when he was on Milwaukee. So because Derek White, he shot 6 for 10 from the field, Porzingis was 7 for 13 from the field, and there was really no one that was tall enough to stop Kristaps Porzingis on the Miami Heat, and there was no one that could really match in points against them. So Bam ended up playing 36 minutes, he ended up scoring 24 points with 6 rebounds and 3 assists. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough for the Boston Celtics, to match up against them. And they're really missing Jimmy Butler. Jamie Jaquez Jr. ended the game with 16 points. Tyler Hero, he ended the game with 11 points and 4 assists and 4 rebounds. Caleb Martin ended the game with 4 points. And Nikola Jovic ended the game with 10 points. And coming off the bench, Delon Wright ended the game with 17 points. And obviously, this game, they desperately needed Jimmy Butler and his performance. A Jimmy Butler 20-point game would have made this game a little bit more competitive. Maybe even 30 points would have made it more competitive. Asking a lot from Jimmy Butler, but again, he's expected to miss most of the playoffs for his injury, and without him being in the first round, I genuinely don't think the team has a chance to prevail past these Boston Celtics, who are still seeking revenge for what they did the previous season when they were the 8th seed, and the Celtics, they almost came back from a 0-3 lead, but they ended up losing in the final game at home in embarrassing fashion. So with the fact that the Celtics are coming out with revenge into this series, I don't think that the Miami Heat have what it takes to take this to more than 6 games. So I have a feeling that this will be one of the series that ends in a sweep. If it doesn't end in a sweep, then it's going to end in 5, but that's basically all that I'm giving for this team because I genuinely don't think they have what it takes. Now, obviously, the Celtics, they've just proven time and time again that they are the better team, and it really shows in this series, and I really think that they're just going to win out as the rest of the games continue. And so for this game, I'm not putting a ton of stock in that fourth quarter that they all had. It was a relatively mediocre fourth quarter it was a really bad fourth quarter for the Miami Heat. They ended up scoring, in the second half, they ended up only scoring 14 points in the third quarter, and then the Boston Celtics scored 31, but then the Miami Heat, they'd scored 35 in the fourth, so it wasn't that bad, but the Celtics, they ended up scoring 23, and it really just wasn't enough for the Miami Heat to pull through and win this game. Boston was finding good shot within 7 seconds of each possession without fail, and it was just 3-pointer after 3-pointer. It was easy shot after easy shot for Boston, and in the first 3 quarters, this was constant in the first 3 quarters, and Miami was lucky to get an open look on a given possession. They were just lucky to even get an open shot because it was they've been proved again. The Celtics have proven that they're good both on the offense and they're good on the defense. They're smothering on both ends of the court, and it's really difficult to come back against that. So obviously, that game is it was really one-sided, and the Celtics, I have a feeling that the Celtics are going to win in 4 games. If I were to bet on a team, I would bet the Celtics to win in game 2, simply because they are still playing in the home court, and they are one of the best teams at defending home court advantage. And most of the time, when they do go up 2-0 in a series, they end up winning the series in the end. So if they do end up winning game 2, then I see this game being I see this series being a sweep, and there's relatively nothing that the rest of the players could do, and that's basically all that I have for these two games. Again, Damian Lillard, he played relatively well in the first half, but the fact that he didn't play well continuously throughout the game is a little bit questionable. So I really think that it's still possible for the Pacers to come out winning in this game, in this series, if they just play as good as they normally do and they hit the threes that they do. But that's basically all I have for for these two games. So then I will go into the fourth segment, where I will talk about the Thunder going up against the Pelicans in their first game, which was arguably the only competitive game that happened yesterday. And then I will also go over the Cavs beating the Orlando Magic. So I will be right back after this short break.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be talking about the Thunder game against the Pelicans that happened yesterday, as well as the Cavs able to win the first game against the Orlando Magic. Again, both the teams were home teams, so they obviously prevailed in this game. And the Thunder game against the Pelicans game was sort of the only competitive game that happened in the entirety of the first games of every single playoff series. The final score was 94-92. So again, it was a really close game. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander proving time and time again that he is one of the league's best guards. He was sort of like the star for this Thunder team, and he was the best player in the fourth quarter for the team when they desperately needed it. He ended up hitting a really clutch shot, a really clutch floater, and one over one of the Pelicans defenders, and that kept them within a striking distance to eventually win the game in the end. Chet ended up hitting 2 free throws after the Pelicans ended up scoring, and then it was down to one final possession. CJ McCollum dribbled the ball out, and he pump faked at the three-point line and took a very, very difficult off-balance three-pointer that he missed, and that caused the Thunder to end up winning the game in the end. So Shai Gilgeous ended the game with 28 points. He also ended with 6 rebounds and 4 assists. Jalen Williams ended the game with 19 points. He played 40 minutes. And Lou Dort ended with 6 points. Chet Holmgren ended the game with 15 points and 11 rebounds. And let's see, that was basically all in terms of the scoring for the Thunder in this game. Again, it was a really close game, despite the fact that the Pelicans didn't have Zion. I honestly think that if the Pelicans had Zion in this game, the scoring would have been a lot different, and the Pelicans would have ended up winning. But Trey Murphy III ended the game with 21 points. He was their leading scorer. And CJ McCollum, he ended the game with 20 points. He played 39 minutes. And CJ McCollum shot 9 for 22 from the field. And again, he ended up shooting more shots than he did points scored, which isn't really that good. But Jonas Valanciunas, he ended the game with 13 points, 5 of 9 from the field. Brandon Ingram shot 5 of 17 from the field for 12 points. And let's see, Herbert Jones ended the game 2 for 10 from the field with 8 points. So a lot of the players on the Pelicans ended up doing a lot more harm than good for this team, and you can't really expect all of them to play this bad for the entirety of the series. I think that they'll most likely step up their game in the next one, and it'll probably be just as competitive, and they might even come out on top and steal a game. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm a little bit concerned at the fact that this game wasn't a blowout for the Thunder, given how every single game was a blowout for the home team, and this was the only team that sort of didn't follow that trend. And it's a little bit concerning how the Thunder, it took them almost the entirety of this game to end up deciding who the winner was going to be, considering how every single other game was decided once the game basically started. And it's really it's concerning if you're on the Thunder, but other than that, I don't really think it's nothing to really worry about, simply because a win is a win, and they still have home court advantage going into the next game. And a lot of the players, they didn't really play that well because it was their first game in the postseason, being the youngest team to ever hold the number 1 seed. So obviously, there's still going to be some nerves going into this game and going into the rest of the playoff series. But now that they played their first game, chances are the nerves they're probably going to handle them a little bit better. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, obviously, the next game isn't going to be as easy as this, or is it going to be a little bit more difficult, I should say, because the defense and the offense is going to change its strategy now that they played the first game. So chances are it might be a little bit more difficult to win out the next game, but we'll see. So next game on the list that we haven't talked about was the Cavs going up against the Orlando Magic. Now, that game sort of happened at a relatively awkward time. It was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I wasn't really paying attention to the games that were happening then. But the Cavs ended up winning 97-83. Now, this was a really bad game for the Magic. Jump shots, they just did not take any of them. The Magic, they did not take any jump shots whatsoever. Every single shot from their offense was limited to shots in the paint or free throws. And obviously, when you're going up against a team that takes jump shots like that, it's really difficult to come back against it, because it's they have a wider variety of shot attempts they could take compared to you, who's only taking shots in the paint. And Cleveland started 5 for 5 from 3, and they then proceeded to miss their next 18 in a row. So Mo Wagner wants to start beef with everyone in the city of Cleveland, it seems in this game, because they ended up fighting, and it almost stopped the game for a little bit. Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs is back. He played very, very well in this game. He ended the game with 30 points, and Jarrett Allen ended the game with 16 points and 18 rebounds. Evan Mobley ended the game with 16 points and 11 rebounds, and Garland ended the game with 14 points and 8 assists. So obviously, with Donovan Mitchell playing as well as he did, Cleveland, they really had nothing to worry about. And they while the Magic are down in this series, they aren't really out in this series, obviously. And all the games for Orlando, the series is far from over, and the team stat of the game is the free throw difference. So Orlando ended up shooting 19 of 30 from the line, compared to the Cavs, who ended up shooting 17 of 21 from the line. So the Cavs ended up shooting a lot less free throws, but they ended up matching them in free throws, rather than the Magic, who ended up shooting way more free throws, but they couldn't I guess you could say, compensate for that. They couldn't really like justify for them shooting that many free throws because they didn't end up scoring that many free throw points. And that's really not good when you are a team like the Orlando Magic, when you need all the points that you could get, especially when you were so limited offensively with your production, with like, you know, the paint shots and the free throws being the only means of scoring that you could really generate for your team. And obviously, like, the Magic, they have to start hitting jumpers. And if they don't start doing that, then this series is going to be like, you can't really even call it a series, because like they need the 3-point shot if they're going to want to match up against Donovan Mitchell, especially with how good he plays in the postseason when the lights are the brightest. So obviously, like, they definitely need a lot more shooting from their team as opposed to just forcing shots in the paint, because again, like that with the team like the Cavs that likes to shoot the 3-pointer, they were really bad at shooting the Magic. They shot 8 for 37 from 3, which was, again, it's not ideal for a team to be shooting that bad when you're going up against a team that also shot really bad, 8 for 30. But again, if the Magic were able to hit more threes, this game would have been a little bit more competitive, because the Cavs were able to compensate by hitting shots. But despite the fact that they weren't hitting 3-point shots, they were hitting shots. And that's really all that they needed when going up against this team. And that's why the scoring was relatively weak for both of these teams. So that's basically all I needed to say about the games that happened over the weekend. Now, there are going to be 3 games that are happening tonight. The Orlando Magic are going to continue playing their series in Cleveland at 7 o'clock. And then at 7:30, the Knicks are going to be playing the 76ers. They're still going to be playing at the Garden. And then the Lakers are going to play the Nuggets at 10 o'clock. So be sure to tune in to all of those games, because they're going to be very good. I'm really looking forward to these games. And that's basically it for the podcast, and that's it for the show. So thank you for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. I also would like to remind everybody to please use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Really helps the show, makes the show much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is GSMCpodcast.net. And that is basically it for the show. Thank you once again. I am your host, Nelson. And as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.